it was, I think, after the press conference, again, after Tottenham's come from behind loss, if that makes sense. No, draw. No, they were 3-1 up and they drew 3 all against Southampton at away from home, I think, which was the most Spursy thing in the world. And Antonio Conte basically came out and slammed the club in their post-game presser, which is interesting. Now, we all know Conte, and I feel like I need to speak about this. We all know Conte is like a very tumultuous in a sense. He's very kind of split. He splits a lot of people. He's people like him. Some people like him. Some people don't. Some people think he's good for the game. Some people don't. Some people think he's good for the game. People think he isn't. Some people think he's a good manager for their club. Some people think he isn't. What we do know is that historically he gets results. And we saw that at Chelsea. We saw that at a bunch of other clubs he's been at. He gets results more often than not. And people thought that he'd come to Spurs and do the same. Of course, when you look at the squad that he's got, Kane up front with Son, pretty good midfield players. Of course, Højbjerg was a very, very shrewd signing and started his Spurs career off quite well. Defence does leave a little bit to be desired, but they're pretty good in most areas, and a lot of people thought that in his tenure, he would be able to get them at least a trophy, FA Cup, League Cup, or whatever, right? Of course, we all know the closest they've come to a trophy since 08, where they beat Chelsea in the League Cup final. Jonathan Woodgate, Jeez, you've given them I would say I'll never forget you. I'll never forgive you, but I mean, it is what it is. Obviously it was a Champions League final on the potch. So Spurs have been starved of success for a long time, and people thought that Conte would be the man to come in and fix that. People did think the same again about Jose Mourinho. We all know he was sacked days before a League Cup final, which confused a lot of people, considering that he's the master tactician in finals and he's a manager that wins finals. So I don't think this Conte spell at Tottenham has gone in the way that a lot of people thought that it would. He is a manager that needs almost everything to go right for him to really excel. And when things aren't going his way, he does find it a little bit tricky to overcome obstacles. And we've seen now that he had a massive dig at Tottenham, massive dig at his own club, basically complaining about the culture, complaining about the kind of atmosphere, the culture, everything, and it said a lot. I think it said a lot. It did say a lot about him. It says a lot about the club, and it says a lot about their potential hopes. Speaking as a Chelsea supporter, yes, I love to see Spurs capitulate, but realistically, the better Spurs are, it's better for the league. They are one of the premier clubs. They're not the best club in the league, and they aren't the most successful. But when Spurs are doing well, it's more often than not a good thing for the league, right? So, it's more often a good thing for the league. So, and it also creates the derbies, the rivalries, etc., which is good, right? However, I don't think that Spurs are in a position where they can be picky and where they can be choosy. They need to get the best that they can get. And Conte was the best that they could get. However, when you have the best, you need to uphold their expectations. You need to uphold the kind of things that they want, if that makes sense. I don't think... I think I said this when he came in. I don't think Conte was ever going to work at Spurs. Unless they got the absolute perfect signings, unless everything clicked, I didn't see a way in which it was going to work, and I think I said that on this podcast last year or some time ago. So, for me, this has been a long time coming, and I think this says a lot about Spurs. It says a lot about the fact that as a club who have notoriously got it wrong time and time again when it comes to managerial appointments, sackings, signings, whatever, it felt like this was the season in which things had finally changed for them. They'd got Conte, they'd kept Conte, they had a pretty good transfer window, at least at the time everyone thought that it was a pretty good transfer window, and a lot of people thought, yeah, Spurs are going to be a side, maybe not contending for the league, but at least definitely in the top four, and at least pushing what we thought was going to be Man City and Liverpool for the title this season. That has completely been the opposite. They've been a rabble, they've been poor, they've been unmotivated, they've been unintimidating. People come to Tottenham and expect to win. That's not what big sides do. teams when they go to the Etihad, when they did go to Anfield, now when they go to the Emirates, they almost resign themselves to defeat because they just know that this team is just too good mentally and tactically. They're just too good. Whereas people go to Spurs with the mentality of, yeah, we can get at this team, we can win this game. That's not a sign of a big club. That's not a sign of a team that is going to win things anytime soon. So it is concerning. It is majorly concerning. I think Conte kind of exploding in front of the press like he did is a little bit kind of represents that in a major way, and it's just such a poor look. It really is such a bad look for the club, and it goes to show once again that where are they going to go? Like, where do they go from here? Because do you keep Conte on because he's the best that you can get? Maybe. Does Poch want to come back? Do you go back to Poch? Who knows? But I don't see a world in which that Conte works. I don't see a world in which in which he works for the long term. For the short term, maybe he may get them top four. I don't know what the points kind of total is at the moment. I'll get that up quickly. But yeah, they do sit fourth. They're 2 points clear. Granted, Newcastle and Liverpool have 2 games in hand, and so do United, who are above them. They also have 2 games in hand. So they have played the most amount of games out of anyone in the league, or equal most amount of games with anyone in the league, and they sit fourth. So at this stage, things are looking okay. They probably might get top 4. I don't think they will, but they could get top 4. They are a team that, I mean, when we look at their most recent month, they got spanked at Leicester. They lost to Milan in the first leg. They beat West Ham 2-0. They beat Chelsea 2-0, which was a great result. Then they lost in the FA Cup. They lost to Wolves in pretty disappointing display. They drew to Milan, getting knocked out in that competition. And they beat Forest, and then they drew to Southampton away from home. It's been a not a good month. Not a good month in the slightest. And funnily enough, this comes off the back of them winning against Man City. So it is a very just weird club to be at right now, and a weird club to kind of look at when you have such a cognitive dissonance between the fans, the club, and the board, and the coach, and the players. No one seems aligned. I don't see it working long term. I never saw it working long term. I think this has just been the kind of the almost inevitable downfall in a sense, or inevitable reaction to what I thought was a squad filled with upheaval or potential upheaval at least, and a club filled with at least potential upheaval, which is what I think Tottenham are and what I think Tottenham have been for quite a long time. So I don't know where they go from here. Like I said, it's going to be one of those things, right, where should he get sacked? I don't know. Will he get sacked? I don't know. Should they go and get Poch? Probably not. Who else is there for them to get? I don't know. I think it's just a wait and see. Potentially wait till the end of the season and just see how things go. But I don't necessarily think what's going on now isn't going to work. I've said that countless times already, but I don't see a change that's going to work, which is a potentially more concerning thing. I don't see a change which is going to work, because you can't just sack a manager and change things for the sake of changing. You need to change with a solution in mind. Sacking Conte isn't a solution, because the only way for that to be a solution is for the next manager to fix the damage that has already been caused. Football is a thing where you need to make 2 decisions. You need to make 2 decisions for it to be the right decision, if that makes sense. Almost 3, sometimes even 4. You can't just make a decision in isolation and that fixing everything. Because if you sack Conte, who do you bring in? That is the solution. Who do you bring in after Conte? Not sacking him. That's not the solution. It's who do you bring in? And then, okay, you brought him in, and then who do you sign to complement him? And then of those players, what systems do you play to make those players work? And then do you play this player up front, or on the left wing, or as a 10, or on the right, or in centre mid, or wherever? You need to make multiple correct decisions in a row for things to flourish. And I don't think Spurs have made correct decisions in a row in a long, long time. right? And I just like even with, I mean, put it into perspective with Conte previously. He came to Chelsea. That didn't fix the issue straight away with what Chelsea had in the previous season. Of course, they finished 10th, 11th, or whatever it was in the previous season. Hiring Conte wasn't a solution because Conte started poorly. The next decision was the solution in terms of moving to a back three. And not only was it moving to a back three, it was bringing in Marcos Alonso, playing him as a left wing back. And then it was bringing in Victor Moses, playing him as a right wing back. Then it was playing like Cesc Fabregas in a double pivot with Kante. It was all these decisions, these little decisions, which ended up being a title. You can't just sack a manager and expect things to change. You can't just hire a manager and expect things to change. The club needs to put a vision forward and get all those little steps right. I don't think Spurs have got any of these little steps right, to be honest. But I just think, I don't know. Spurs are in a weird position, a very weird position. I don't see where they go from here. But not a good look for the club at all. And I guess it'll be interesting to see where they go.